let's talk about the water sector and what is going on. Because apparently across England and Wales, water is failing, needs stronger regulation to better protect both bill payers and the environment. Who's saying that? Well, these are interim findings of a landmark review by the Independent Water Commission, led by the former Bank of England Deputy Governor Sir John Cunliffe. He said public trust has been shaken by pollution, financial difficulties, mismanagement and infrastructure failures. This comes on the same day that we learned that the approved preferred bidder to take over Thames Water, this is the private equity giant KKR, has pulled out of plans to invest in Thames Water and save it from collapse. So will we have to take it into public ownership? Will it go into administration? Bearing in mind it's our biggest water company, providing water to a fifth of the population. What do we do in that case? Well, let's talk about all of this with Angela Knight. She's a former chief executive of Energy UK and a former Treasury Minister. A very good morning to you, Angela.
Good morning, how are you?
Very well indeed. Better off than the water sector with transpire. Now, these are only interim findings from this report, but looking at that first of all, I mean, he's basically criticising the water companies, the government, but also Ofwat, who is supposedly on the side of the consumer and protecting our interests, clearly failing to do so.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it does the three, doesn't it? It says the three blames. It says the businesses themselves, the regulator and the government. It has that in there too, as not having a clear government direction. If we go to the regulator, I mean, the regulator every so often sits down with each of the water companies and looks at what they are allowed to charge the consumer. So it looks at it from the consumer perspective. Huge pressure, of course, to keep the water bills down. Well, as you know yourself, you can't keep a bill down and do the investment.
Yep.
Now, that doesn't mean that I'm excusing the companies in any way, but there's been for a long time a clear mismatch, and Ofgem has basically, in my view, just not done its job.
Ofwat in this. They're all. I have to say, I don't think none of the regulators have been doing their job in any of Ofgem. We normally talk to you about energy, your former area of expertise. But this is the thing. What a lot of people don't understand is there's shortages of water all the time because we don't have enough reservoirs. We had two announced last week they're going to be built, but they won't be built for a decade or so. We have loads and loads of rain, and then we get a couple of weeks without rain, and then we have a hose pipe ban. Meanwhile, 20% of our water is lost through leakages. The pipes aren't mended. Water companies say, we've got no money for any of this. It's not our fault because we're not allowed to put the bills up. Meanwhile, they're giving their directors bonuses and they're handing out billions to their shareholders. But that's where all the money's going, right?
Well, yeah, partly, but partly not, actually, Julia. I mean, you're absolutely right. It gets a bit ridiculous when you see that the pay is one thing, but actually pay is sort of totemic, but it's not really important. But nobody's going to invest in a business unless they get a return. So clearly they have got to give a return to their shareholders. One of the reasons why we don't have reservoirs is the huge problem of actually getting planning permission and cutting through what are often very complicated environmental considerations to get there. And then on the...
but that's a government failure, isn't it? That's a complete government failure for 30 years, I think.
And don't forget that we do pull water out of what they call aquifers, because it's all that rock that sits underneath the earth, and lots of it stores water as well.
Yeah.
But our population has gone up. We're building strongly in some areas which are naturally dry, like East Anglia, and the provision of services, of which water is one, has not taken place.
Yeah.
So if the proposition, which I hope they get to quickly from this independent review, is bung all the regulators that are relevant together and just get on with the job and be sensibly explaining to you and me and everybody else that we've got to pay for sewage, we've got to find the breaks in the pipe businesses, these are your priorities, then we'll get somewhere. But if we fanny around playing politics with it, we won't. And meanwhile, with Thames Water, there are some other alternatives for investment in Thames Water. And looking at the commentary chain today, I'm actually very uncomfortable with some of the comments that have been made about KRR backing out, because it does flag politics as one. We've got a whole load of people saying nationalisation. The best interest for us is to have the private sector pick up and sort out Thames Water, not us. And as I say, sensible plan going forward of how we get the with the regulation in the right place, so we get the sewage fixed, we get the pipes fixed. We will have to pay more, but let's get a balance to that proper debate.
But we're happy to. I think we're happy to pay more as long as we know that a load of that money isn't going actually being paid shareholders. I mean, if you're not, but surely the government and Ofwatch making sure you have to do the stuff we've required you to do as part of your deal of having this control, because it's a monopoly. I mean, I'm one of the fifth of the country who has Thames Water producing the water. Well, you know, so if I don't think they're doing a good job, I can't switch to another company. So there should be far more regulations. Well, a lot of people would argue there's not much argument for it being a national, private. You can have, you know, private company people running it, but I'm not quite sure the purpose of it being privatised when it's a natural monopoly.
Well, it was privatised years ago for the purposes of getting that extra investment.
Well, how's that worked out?
Well, I think it probably has, because otherwise, you know, what are you going to spend your money on? Sewage or a hospital? And those are the sorts of trade-offs that a government has to do. So the proposition which says, put this out to the private sector and then regulate it well, because
so they have to do it. That's a very bad argument against. Well, it's a good argument against bad governance, isn't it? What the governments are admitting, they make really bad short-term choices, which we know they regularly do. Just finally, we talk a lot about so much stuff. I mean, everyone gets Virgil Sharkey on as the expert on this, as that you know, there's too much sewage in our rivers. There is too much sewage in our rivers, I'm sure. However, a lot of the reason why we think there's a lot more sewage in our rivers now than previously is because we actually test more rivers, don't we? If you only test like 2% of rivers, you won't find as much sewage.
Well, we test so much. We test beach water, we test all these things, which is a good idea. I mean, dare I say it, I'm of the age which where, you know, you swam in sewage infested sea. That doesn't mean that I just...
And we were better for it.
But you know, it happened. And I'm not justifying, and I'm saying that clear up is a good idea. Testing is important, but like everything, you need to put the balance of the debate in, because if one says one thing's good and the other thing's bad and it's complicated, then you're going to come out with the wrong answer.
Okay. Angela Knight, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed.